Pleasure to be here. I guess I'm part of this editor's cut because even though I'm an academic, my title at the Indian Express is contributing editor. So I count I'm part of the journalistic community as well. And Narayan writes a regular column. Narayan is best viewed as one of India's finest corporate intellectuals, in my view. And Saba is everywhere. So now there are two ways of analyzing elections. Prospectively, certainly two ways. One is the game of statistics. What do stats say? How do numbers add up? And the second is an analysis based on moods and emotions. Now, almost every smart politician of the world would like to argue that he would not be bound by numbers and statistical probabilities. He would like to create a new world. That's putting it too grandly, but a new situation, a new mood in favor of him, a new wave, if you will, right? Now, in 2014, many of us, we are professional political scientists or professional political commentators, did statistical analysis, and Mr. Modi completely demolished, by his results, the statistical foundations of election analysis. No, there was not a single observer from either perhaps there were some predictions by survey agencies or election agencies, private survey agencies, but there was no analysis which was willing to put him beyond 230, 240, and he got 282, right? There was absolutely no way anyone could have predicted 73 seats in UP out of 80, right? 25 out of 25 in Rajasthan, 26 out of 26 in Gujarat, 27 out of 29 in Madhya Pradesh, 22 out of 40 in Bihar. And whereas Nitish Kumar got a mere 2 or 3 seats, and then he changed the coalition and won in the assembly elections, and now he's changed the coalition again, his coalition partner again. So I think in order for us to do justice to this topic, we should engage in both kinds of analysis. And the most important part would be when we come to moods and emotions, and would be, are there any dramatic issues coming up in the next 3-4 months which might change the discourse, which might change the way people begin to look at how they'll vote. And that has to be done by January, latest by February. I think after February, not too many very dramatic interventions in the political process can be made, given the way the election laws work, right? Election laws work. So we will engage in both. We've decided that about 40 minutes we will have a conversation, and I'll tell you around what topics. And then for about 20 minutes of our 60 minutes allocated to this panel, for 20 minutes we'll have a Q&A from the audience. And by agreement also, we will split our 40 minutes into 3 parts. What are the key issues? And here the issue of moods will become important. What might key issues become? What are the key issues right now? And what might they become by the time we get to February and March? 2, what are the key states? 3, what are the key alliances? Right? So we will talk about that. Just key states, of course, we can list for you. That's very easy to do. Perhaps we'll start with that. UP, 80 seats. Maharashtra, second largest, 48 seats. Bengal, third largest, 42 seats. Bihar is now the 4th largest, no longer the 2nd largest, 40 seats. Tamil Nadu, 5th largest, 39 seats. Madhya Pradesh, 29. Gujarat, 26. Karnataka, 26. Rajasthan, 25. Andhra, 25. 28, Karnataka, okay. So that adds up to 382 seats out of 543. This is where the battle for next government will be decided. These are the states. There will be some, when we play marginal games, when someone is at 260, then smaller states become important, right? But I'm not saying smaller states are not important. I'm simply talking about the larger game of numbers. In the larger game of numbers, smaller states will become important if a particular party or a particular alliance is close to 255 and 260, and it has to get to 273. Right? That's when small states in the overall picture will become very important. Otherwise, this is where the next election, the power for the next government will be made or unmade in these states. So let's then start with the whole idea, this idea of what the key issues as of now are, and spend some time of what might they become, and on what basis are we making that projection. So let's start with Mukund. And what do you think are the key issues, and what might they become?
Well, I mean, I think when you talk of key issues, the presumption seems to be that there will be key national issues that will play a role all across the country. And I think that may not be true. I think this is going to be a mix of national issues at play and state issues at play. And I think in the states where there is a Congress-BJP face-off, principally Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, and Chhattisgarh, so on, I think national issues will be foregrounded a little bit. Take Tamil Nadu, for instance, where both the BJP and the Congress are completely bit players. I mean, they hardly have a presence. I think that is going to revolve almost wholly around issues to do with the state. I think, an issue seems to suggest that this is something weighty and of substance. I think elections sometimes also fought on non-issues. They fought on personalities. And increasingly, I think in the age of social media, they're assuming a kind of presidential character. So there will be that as well. A little bit of, Rahul versus Modi, if you like, will be, I think, a running theme in this election. I don't know how much of this is a substantial issue. But if I'm going to identify one or two issues that I think will have a resonance all around the country, one, I think, and I'm drawing from the Gujarat election results from this, if you actually, the recent assembly elections, it was very interesting because the results showed a sort of like a staggering and almost complete rural-urban divide. I mean, you had an urban constituency that voted fairly strongly, fairly overwhelmingly in favor of the BJP. You had the BJP performing distinctly worse in rural areas, which I think raises the question which lots of analysts have been talking about. Are we in the grip of some kind of agrarian distress? And is that a problem? And how will this play out in this election? I think we know that MSPs, for instance, have not been raised over the last 4 years. I mean, there was a recent raise just now, but they've been raised very, very marginally compared to, say, UPA 1, which could be, one of the things playing on the minds of the people. I think the second issue nationally, again, this is economic. I think it'll have to do with jobs. I think there has been a phenomenon of jobless growth. And I think this dovetails in a way with the agricultural situation because agriculture, as you know, employs in one way or another almost half the population of this country, but contributes, just a fraction towards the GDP. So that's an extremely imbalanced sector. So those two, I think.
So then, one important issue clearly is whether there will be national level issues or whether there will be sort of state level campaigning. My sense is that it's in the interest of the BJP to nationalize the electoral space It is in the interest of all non-BJP parties, or opposition parties, not alliances of alliance partners of BJP. It's in the interest of all opposition parties to provincialize the electoral space, right? And I think I agree with you that in states where there's a straight contest between BJP and Congress, there will be some national level issues, much more national level, campaigning around national level issues than in states like Tamil Nadu, where BJP and Congress are really bit players, right? Or for that matter, Telangana, you know, where this will not be an issue, where, etc. And then you're saying that the national issues would mostly be economic, revolving around farm distress and jobs. Perhaps it's worth asking, let's turn to Nilanjan, perhaps it's worth asking whether beyond economics there can be some other national issues such as minorities, such as who is a superior citizen of India and who is a second-class citizen of India. Can that be a national level issue by any stretch of imagination?
Thank you, Ashutosh. Both you and Mukund have said that there will be issues at the state level as well as they'll play out at the national level. Yes, there will be economic issues, there will be issues of livelihood concerns, which would encompass all kinds of issues, whether it is rural distress or jobless growth or the jobs which were expected that would come, not been delivered by this government in the last 4.5 years. But basically at one level, there will be these entire issues where the performance of this government is going to play up at one level. But at the other level, there is also going to be a major ideological issue, which is going to provide the backdrop of the entire campaign by the BJP. Let me try to explain to you that in the last 7 decades since we became independent, if we look at that, what have been the most dominant theme of socio-political discourse. In the first 4 decades, right till 1970s, the central focus used to be the idea of socialism. So we had a situation where you had different shades of socialism. You had Nehruvian socialism, you had Loyite socialism, you had the communist socialists, you had the Marxists, you had the Naxalites, various kinds of socialisms. From there, from the 80s onward, the dominant theme became secularism. So you had, again, different kinds of secularism. You had the Congress secularism. Somebody said that this is soft secularism. You had a hard secularism of the communists. You have various kinds of secularism. You also had the BJP, which started coming into play and started saying, we are the real secularists. But still, the dominant theme was in and around secularism. Electoral alliances were also being formed that are you with communal parties or without communal parties or against them. I have a feeling that for the last almost a decade, starting from 2010, if I really have to put down my finger on a particular date, I would say that 2010 is a time when India begins to transit from socialism being the dominant theme to Hindutva or Hindu nationalism. I think, that whatever happens, whatever kind of debate goes on, there's a constant backdrop of Hindu nationalism which is going to be played throughout this entire election, the way it comes up, right? The BJP is going to, of course, not allow only the ideological basis to form its entire campaign plan, because it has to somehow or the other also justify that it has completely shed the sectarian approach for which it was known in the past. So it has to talk about development also, which is where the last 4.5, 5 years, the deliveries by this government, by the pro-poor thirst, the constant mention of Daridra Narayan, the theme of Deen Dayal Upadhyay, the egalitarian approach, all those points are going to be stressed. Various deliveries have been made, whether it is in terms of health insurance, cooking gas subsidies. Those are the kind of issues which are going to be. So there is going to be a tussle as to whose campaign plank is going to dominate. Whether it is going to be the opposition, which is not going to allow the ideology to come up front, even though the fact that the major ideology, the opposition force, at least the Congress, is playing within the ideological framework framed by the BJP. If you look at the way Rahul Gandhi has been visiting temples right from the time in Gujarat, it basically means that you are operating within the framework of Hindu nationalism, minus maybe the kind of extreme sectarianism of the BJP. So, ideological dominance, or whether it is going to be economic or the the disenchantment of the people with this government. That is the way I see things rolling out. Depends on who can run away with their campaign better.
So, Saba, let's turn to you. Two different kinds of issues have been on the table. One, the economic issues, and the other, this claim that while BJP would talk about economic issues, there is an ideological core to BJP politics that it cannot distance itself from. Even if it wanted to, the question is whether it would want to do that. So how do you come out on that?
You know, if I can just answer you a little differently. Hello, I'm delighted to be back in Bangalore. The last time I was here, I went to the BJP office, and I was informed that many people trolled me, and the same people who trolled me wanted pictures of me against cutouts of Yeddurappa and Narendra Modi.
Okay.
It was a very, very funny moment for me. So I stood there and people took selfies in the BJP office during the assembly elections. So thank you, Bangalore, and delight to be here. Ashutosh, beyond we all know what the ideology is. We all know what the cadre is. Of course, I entirely believe that the economic issues are going to be important. But the structure of the campaign, if I may go into that, we are dealing, you are talking about a party, you are talking about the will to succeed. I have not seen in any leader, even in the BJP, as Mr. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has. That is an important element in what comes forward. You are seeing in the determination to create arithmetical models in every seat. And here I disagree with you. They will look out for every seat, be it one seat in the Northeast or one seat in Goa. We can say, but they're counting losses here.
No, I'm not saying that they would not. I'm saying in the final analysis.
Yeah, I know you. I agree with you.
That will matter when you get to 250 and 255. Yeah.
I know. I absolutely get that. So the way the Bharatiya Janata Party operated in Gujarat, which Mukund mentioned, was that they, besides their own candidates, they funded a lot of independents and they funded other parties, helped them put up candidates. Because the thing that they know is that in the first past the post system, how do you win a mandate with less number of votes? How do you divide the opposition? So the key to this election is going to be the amount of resources that they have. There is no party historically, according to figures with the Election Commission of India, which has had as much money as the Bharatiya Janata Party has. The Congress never came close. It's richer than all the 6 national parties together right now. So you're seeing a very, very purposeful, determined leadership. There is no niceties here like there were in the age of Vajpayee. You're seeing all these models, seat after seat, being applied. But Indian politics has a way of throwing up surprises. But I think the key to this election is going to be arithmetical possibilities of where does the opposition, they have the issues are there. Do they have the ability to ensure that the vote is not divided in this manner? Can they stop a Mayawati from being a spoiler here and there? In Uttar Pradesh, can SP and BSP get together? These are, and the BJP has already shown some wisdom just yesterday, when they again went back to their old model of Grand Alliance model, when a diminished Nitish Kumar was told that they will share half the seats with him. They're willing to learn. I mean, these are guys who are changing. It's the others who can't change. So we are dealing with a very dynamic party, like it or not. The ideology, I don't even want to say very much. We all know what the ideology is. I think understand the practical way the BJP plan is on the ground in the age of Modi. The money is the key to it. The determination is there. And the model of arithmetically, seat after seat, ensuring that votes are splintered. I think these are, to my mind, are the key things.
Narayan.
So I'm from Bangalore, so thank you, Bangalore. So I think of this as the Trimurti election, and all the 3 Murtis are Modis. There is Modi, the economic reformer, Sabke Saath Sabka Vikas. There is Modi, the Hindutva torchbearer. and there is the Modi, the Erdogan acolyte, the guy who is the authoritarian. And we have seen all three faces of Modi already in different shades, in different fashions. I'll leave it to the substantial engineering population in this group to probability weight the three faces. So in addition to the national, regional, urban, rural sort of vote, I think each constituency, each voter is actually debating, are they closer to which face of Modi? So let me go through each very quickly. The economic face of Modi, those of us in the audience who are professional and who thought maybe we have a Deng Xiaoping in our midst, might well be disappointed. And so that little constituency, call it 6, 7, 8% of the electorate that voted on that notion of economic development has at best a mixed rating, possibly a negative rating. The Hindutva person who voted on the notion of Hindutva has probably been strengthened because any nicety related to not talking about Hindutva and not repeating the word 1200 saal ki gulami multiple times will probably be dispensed with in this election. So the second group is probably emboldened even further, and that core constituency, I don't know the numbers, pick a number, 25%, is probably emboldened to say, I'm going to vote and vote stronger for this second phase of Modi. The third phase of Modi is a little more complicated, perhaps not well understood, which is the authoritarian. There is an alarming streak, particularly among what is affectionately called by Ashutosh's friends as the urban Naxals. The urban Naxals secretly want some sort of authoritarian figure to magically solve India's problems. There is no celebration of freedom in the sort that Ramchandra Guha just celebrated. Everybody listens to it, nods, go home and says, we need a dictator to clear our garbage and the dictator to run our buses on time. It's a very, very alarming trend. So there is this constituency among us and possibly within this audience that says we need this dictator to help us. So I think on each of these three notions, you will have each constituency voting, and I believe it will be substantially a national idea on these three metrics. I will just add one more thing, and that is you didn't mention the structure of Indian elections. And the structure of Indian elections, again, for those who don't follow it day to day, is first past the post. So if you have 17 people standing, you can win with 17% of the vote. And therefore, this machine that was just mentioned is very relevant because the other side has no machine. The other side has simply a naysaying vote on these three faces of Modi. They don't have a machine. And so the machine says, let me encourage 16 other people to stand in every constituency so that even with 17% of the vote, I can get ahead. So arithmetic, and more structurally the arithmetic, is going to matter in every constituency in India, and the BJP is light years ahead in making this determination relative to any other party.
So I wonder if most people in the audience have followed the Panna Pramukh argument of Mr. Amit Shah. What exactly is a Panna Pramukh? Panna here in Hindi was my first language, Hindi Urdu. So I thought Panna initially meant it could be, a geographical area. You could see that, right? In British parlance, it could be that. But Panna is page. One page of the electoral roll. Each page of the electoral roll is assigned to one person, right? This is an election machine of an astronomical proportion. One page of electoral roll assigned to one person working for the BJP. So each page of India's electoral rolls would be assigned to you can figure out how many, this is a large machine then. It could run into probably certainly hundreds of thousands, and it could be more than that, right? So now the same election machine in Gujarat actually came close to losing. So that doesn't mean
at 30 a page, it's a million.
Thank you. So a million volunteers are available. A million BJP workers would be looking after at least, right? So we're talking about here, clearly, Saba has said this, you've said this, others have said this, that the machine that exists, the BJP machine, is a machine that, electoral machine that we haven't seen before. This kind of organizational muscle. But the same machine got caught into a lot of trouble in Gujarat, we know that, right? So the fact that a machine exists, and perhaps the world's biggest machine exists for elections, doesn't mean that election has been won, right? Doesn't mean that election has been won. So now let's talk about maybe some key alliances. So Saba has talked about SP-BSP. Those who follow UP know what that means. SP-BSP coming together mechanically add up to roughly 50% of UP's vote, right? And BJP has been at roughly 40% over the last two elections. If SP and BSP can come together, some of us who've tried to analyze and some of us who've already talked to BJP insiders about that, right? Including people who ran, who got the BJP ticket and ran for office, ran for Lok Sabha seats in 2014. The loss could be as large as 50 seats if SP-BSP can come together. 73 seats of BJP plus 71 of BJP and 2 of Apna Dal. 73 seats could come down to 22 and 23, right? That's a real possibility of that now. Now, would anyone here like to say something about how possible is an SP-BSP alliance? It is now coming together in MP, it is coming together in Chhattisgarh, and it is coming together in Rajasthan. But in the overall macro sense, UP is the heart of the matter. So would anyone like to say, Saba thinks Mayawati could be a spoiler?
No, I don't.
You don't think so? So let's start with you.
I think, I know that they are saying that the alliance will only be announced once the notification comes in, right around that time. I mean, my job is to talk to players. Now, you can't talk to Mayawati, but you can certainly talk to the people in the SP, the leadership in the SP, Mr. Jayan Chaudhary, who actually lives very near my house. So this is good source to information that it will come at a later stage. Because they're also negotiating for space against the Congress.
Right.
Let's remember that. They're also...
So Saba, it's for you an odds-on alliance at this point.
They are both non-existent without an alliance. So it's in their self-interest. Nobody is doing anything for secularism, Ashutosh. It's only liberals who sit here and think it's all for secularism and ideas. All of us think but they're doing it for themselves. It's in their self-interest to have an alliance.
SP has only 4 seats. SP has only 4 seats in Lok Sabha. BSP has 0. They are fighting for their existence, right? So the issue is not secularism, certainly. You're right.
Not at all.
It's fighting for their existence. They have to... BSP got roughly 20% of UP's vote, but 0 seats, right? And SP got 4 seats. So this is clearly, if they've learned something from that and from some by-elections, and they couldn't come together even in the assembly elections, and they were wiped out.
And Mayawati does not hesitate to damage so-called secularism to make a point about regionalism. And she thinks, and she has a point of view from the perspective of Dalit rights, from the perspective of regional rights. She thinks she has a right to be against this sort of idea of monolithic centralized parties. There's a whole sort of way of looking at things also.
Right.
And she's negotiating and she's going to damage them a little bit, apparently in Chhattisgarh. You know?
Yeah, so I'd like to echo that, but completely from the economic point of view. When one so-called economic reform, which all of you will recognize as demonetization, was meant entirely to dismember one party, I think that party's interest is to figure out a way to strike back. And so I would say very, very strongly that the BSP-SP probability is very high. Timing is TBD, but I think the probability is very, very high. from purely an existential point of view.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think there seems very little doubt that they will come together in some form for the reason Saba says, which is basically to survive. And I think the reason why they need to come together is, 2004 was a extraordinary election. There were extraordinary results, extraordinary performances. Take UP. In UP, they got, I mean, I may be off by a few percentage points or something, but if I recall, they got something like 42.6%.
41.6, yeah.
42, I think.
42, yeah.
And then in the state assembly, they were down only by 1%.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that this was held in 2017,
Correct.
which is like 3 years off, and after demonetization. This is against the grain of what has happened elsewhere.
Correct.
Take Gujarat. They got 60.1 in 2004. They were down
2014.
2014,
Yeah.
and they were down to 49%, 49 and something. It is a loss of 11%. I'll just digress here for a minute. I don't think that election was close. It was close in terms of seats, but I think the extraordinary thing about that election is that even though there was an 8 percentage point difference between the BJP and the Congress, which ordinarily would have meant a clean sweep, it wasn't a clean sweep because because that state voted in. It was a tale of two elections. Yeah. You had a different story in the rural areas, and you have a different story in the rural areas. So that 8-point difference didn't make as much of. Didn't translate into as many seats as it would have ordinarily if it was an even election.
Right.
But coming back to UP, I think the fact that they have done more or less similarly between 2014 and 2017 just means it is absolutely imperative for these two parties to come together. And I think the by-elections in Gorakhpur, in Phulpur, in Karana, they've all shown that arithmetic is enough. And I'm not sure whether, Panna Pramukhs and so on hold in the face of such arithmetic. Because if you add up and you get 50% of the vote, which they can do if they just maintain...
mechanically, it's 50% actually.
Yeah, mechanically.
It's 50%.
This is going to be I think the critical thing around which this entire election revolves. Because if, as you say, and you can do the math, and if 50 seats actually
are lost,
you come down from 281 to 230. And then if you then factor in that you cannot do as well, you cannot do better in Gujarat, you're probably likely to do a little worse. You've virtually maxed out in Madhya Pradesh.
Rajasthan,
you maxed out. Chhattisgarh, you did very well. Yeah. So there are places you can only do worse. And then the question is whether the incremental seats that you have in the Northeast, and I'm not sure whether they can do better in Karnataka, for instance. I'm not sure at all.
No,
so I don't know where...
They had 17 seats in Karnataka.
Yeah,
it's not going to be easy. So, 17 seats in Karnataka in 2014.
18,
BJP.
18, isn't it?
Yeah, 17. I saw that before coming. Yeah.
17. Okay. So, this is going to be, I think, the story of where they are going to pick up. So, to me, UP might just settle this election.
Can I just add one line on UP and then I'm done, because I tend to talk too much. Yeah. But I'll just quickly add it, since it's my home state. And so also the popularity, I think Mr. Padmanabhan is absolutely right. Since then, Yogi Adityanath's government has come under serious questions. And from what I can make out, I don't know how much all of you relate to it, but his basic focus is on having Kumbh Mela on a very large scale in Allahabad, now called Prayagraj. That is going to be his campaign strategy. Kumbh Mela, very large Kumbh Mela. That's what I wanted to say.
Nilanjan.
We have rightly talked about that why it is absolutely necessary for the Samajwadi Party and the BSP to come together. They have come together in the past also. Most importantly, we must go and look back at the assembly elections held in '93, a few months after the demolition of the Babri Masjid and the dismissal of the Kalyan Singh government. Now, in '90, when the elections were held, the BJP got a majority and formed a government for the first time. But after the government was dismissed, the Samajwadi Party under Mulayam Singh Yadav and Kanshiram was still alive, they decided to come together. They formed a very unlikely election, and though the BJP's vote share went up, it was not enough to form the government. So there is a history. There is also compulsion for Mayawati to contest as many seats. Primarily the reason as to why she was wanting to have a footprint in Madhya Pradesh, in Rajasthan, is because she is one of the 6 national parties, and the status is going to, she's going to lose the status if she does not get a certain number of votes from a certain number of states, which is very important to retain the national status. That is something which you have to understand as to why she has been so insistent. But I think, we have to look beyond Uttar Pradesh. We also have to understand that this entire idea of Mahagathbandhan was basically a BJP ploy to paint, a very chaotic kind of a opposition alliance that, look, out here you are very clear that who is going to be the Prime Minister is going to be Mr. Modi. But who is going to be a Prime Minister? Is it going to be you? Is it going to be he? Is it going to be she? Who is the person who is going to be Prime Minister? Nobody. They do not have anybody. They will start fighting right within the campaign. That has been the kind of a campaign which has been mounted even before the alliance. I think if you look at the events in the last few months, especially after Gujarat, you'll find, I am of the opinion that as far as the leadership question is concerned, the opposition has been very smart. They have not allowed the BJP so far to presidentialize the elections. It is going to be a huge challenge for them not to succumb to the BJP's attempt to presidentialize it. We will get back to what we were talking about, that it suits the opposition for it to federalize this election, for it to be an aggregation of various state elections. Let it be a different story in Uttar Pradesh, let it be a different story in Bihar, let it be a different story in Bengal, where the Congress may be given a few seats by Trinamool Congress. Yeah. So that is, state by state, if they really go about building alliances block by block, that is going to be the most important thing. I simply cannot, resist talking about, you raised the issue of Panna Pramukh. Having, in 2013-14 written about this idea, as to how it was introduced in the BJP's campaign in 2014, this is something I simply cannot, refuse to, talk about. We must all go back to, a speech which Amit Shah gave to his party workers in September. I think it was in Rajasthan, where he talked to them as to how to go about building these WhatsApp factories. From the Panna Pramukh, they have now got into this WhatsApp factories. They have identified that almost every booth has about 1,000 voters. So you roughly require about 4 WhatsApp groups to be able to reach out to them. Mr. Amit Shah, and here I quote, I'm virtually paraphrasing what he said. He says, you create these, he's telling his party workers, you create this massive WhatsApp network of 4 WhatsApp groups per every booth, like so many lakhs, he had all those figures in his fingertips, and I will have a centralized way of feeding you. You have to just publicize what you want the people to believe. So it is going to be a centralized campaign, which is going to be disseminated in a very decentralized manner. But eventually, this is going to be an election about sentiment versus management. This is where, managing elections is this is not the first time it has been done. There has always been a machinery to back it up. After all, Mrs. Gandhi had a machinery even in 77, but she could not prevent that machinery from ensuring that she didn't lose. So let us not get too overawed by this. I know that Mr. Amit Shah and Mr. Modi are possibly the most politically hungry leaders in this country. Actually you have to understand that nobody actually works so hard like Mr. Modi and Mr. Amit Shah does.
Okay, Narayan, a short comment, then I think Maharashtra for what, 5 minutes, then we open up. Maharashtra is very important, I'll say why. Yeah, go ahead.
Across states, I would just, I completely agree with what Nilanjan just said, but it's not just the machinery. I think they are also stoking the emotion, right? So they have control over both levels quite extensively. So I must go against the sacred thread of this conversation, and that is to say that both the machine and the emotion are being managed constituency by constituency by one party. That does not mean they will win, but that just means that their odds-on decline that all of you are so easily postulating, minus 50, ain't going to happen so easily.
Can I contradict him? I swore silence, but I have to... Any machinery, please remember, within a year of winning 2014, that historic win, Mr. Modi and Mr. Amit Shah lose both Bihar and Delhi, and there were huge defeats. So machinery, we have to be aware of what we are talking about here. But we cannot lose sight of these things.
Correct.
So,
Absolutely.
and there is a sort of Stockholm syndrome that some people believe that there is Modi in this avatar, Modi in that avatar, Modi in the third avatar. I mean, this is a very large country. It would be a real pity if all we saw in our dreams was just various forms of Modi.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing, that I think the machinery and the sentiment are sufficient to permit the BJP to emerge as the largest party in the country, which I think they will do in terms of vote percentage. But machinery and sentiment have no place in the face of brute arithmetic. And time and again, Bihar is a good example. The by-elections that you've had in UP are a good example, have demonstrated this. So I think we just need to see how this plays out, particularly in UP, and I think that's going to determine how this election goes.
So, Mukund, UP we've discussed maybe just a few minutes, not more than 5 minutes, if that. So Maharashtra, the second largest, out of 48 seats, the BJP Shiv Sena alliance got 41 seats. And NCP and Congress wiped out, right? How do you read the alliance situation? Is the marriage between Shiv Sena and BJP in Maharashtra, has it reached a breaking point, or is just an unhappy marriage but not ready for divorce? How would you analyze, because if that alliance doesn't hold, and NCP and Congress have already announced today on 40 seats they have an agreement, and they're working out the last 8, right? If that alliance does not hold, SS-BJP alliance does not hold, what will Maharashtra produce?
Yeah, I mean, this might strike you as, and the others is very politically naive, but I think unhappy marriages work. You think BSP and SP is a happy marriage?
It's not.
Far from it.
Yeah.
But, they can make it work. So, I see the politics and the estrangement and the fact that, they're in government and not in government and so on. But I think neither is the Congress-NCP alliance going to be, made in heaven. So that's fine. I mean, that's politics. Finally, it's about numbers. And I won't write off the BJP Shiv Sena in Maharashtra.
Ashutosh, I went to Maharashtra recently, and I was told this by a very wise Marathi journalist, that these days all that the Sena has going for it is it wants to be respected. It feels disrespected. There is no ideology. There is nothing else. Izzat ka sawal hai, naak kat jayegi kind of a thing. Yeah. So the BJP will in the end come and mollify some of them. And because in the assembly election, however, which will follow a little later, then the Sena can play more games. They have bigger stakes. This is what I was told.
Right. I mean, if you think of if that alliance breaks up, it's so damaging to them, to each of them. Yes. Right? So whatever the state of marriage, let's hang together for some more time. Right?
Unhappy marriages work as
let's hang together some more time, because otherwise it will be very damaging. 41 seats is a lot of seats, and 18 seats Shiv Sena contributed to the alliance. Right? So it's a very... Okay, so let's open up now. We have 10 minutes left. So, yes, ma'am. Someone will have the microphone there. Someone will have the microphone there. Do you have the... Yeah. You want ours? The lady here first, and then we go there. Yeah. Yeah.
So, with due apologies to all of you, I'd like to take this to reduce it to a very simplistic question, and I'd like your opinion on that. You haven't at all mentioned the incumbency factor, and you haven't, when you've talked about machinery and emotions, statistics, arithmetic, everything, and you talked about the emotional component, I don't think you've taken into consideration the emotional component of the Indian electorate or the Indian voter. According to me, the only reason that Modi won in 2014 is because Sonia Gandhi presented it to him on a silver plate, because she goofed up. The Indian electorate has given Modi a rope, a long rope nevertheless, but a long rope, and he's entirely hung himself. So because of the incumbency and because the Indian electorate emotion, I don't see how BJP will come back. And I'd like your opinion on that. Thank you.
Would you like to say something? Narayan?
Can I?
Well, as of now, there are, okay, let's put it on the table. There are three scenarios being discussed. A return with majority, with just 1% or 2% probability. Lowest probability is attached to that scenario. A return to power in an alliance with roughly 220 seats, plus minus. The maximum likelihood is attached to that scenario. The third scenario is around 180, right, for BJP, and that would make it very hard for Mr. Modi to continue to lead, actually. Below 200, internal knives will be out, right? Andruni chaku, that the whole concept, Andruni chaku, unka istemal kiya jayega. So, but the highest probability of as far as these three scenarios are concerned, is the second one, namely 220 in an alliance, emerging as not only as the largest party, but perhaps the only party capable of making an alliance, right? Now, this can change in January. We can't, this prediction is not, we can't be so sure about our predictions. We can say probabilistically, this is perhaps the scenario that is most
a very
likely.
quick point.
Yeah.
She was talking about the emotive aspect of the Indian voter. Yes, the Indian voter is always very emotively driven. But I think that both the camps have to still to do their hard work. At the moment, it depends at who can get the emotions on their side. Can it be the opposition which gets it that the total frustration that what they expected this government to, what they promised has not been delivered? Or would it be the greater Hindutva idea which the BJP is going to promote, which is not just Ayodhya, but it is going to be about Ayodhya, about beef, about love jihad, about renaming of cities, about generally enhancing the prestige of the Indian passport, as Mr. Modi says repeatedly in his speeches. Though I really do not know whether those who travel outside, whether they feel that people look at Indians with greater respect than before 2014. But anyway, that's a different question.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to say briefly, I don't think the road is paved yet to 2019. We still have months to go. And we need to remember that, you talked briefly about what could happen between now and then.
Yeah.
Expectedly, what is expected? I think very little. But I'm not saying this is likely to happen again, but we've had elections influenced by
Dramatic events, yeah.
Kargil, for instance, I think played a role in 1999. We know that Rajiv Gandhi's assassination in the middle of an election, when one phase is over,
yeah.
and another phase
10%,
contributed about 25 to 30 seats, according to Pranoy, I think, who did a psephological analysis. So, Sabarimala might
play a role in the north?
Play a role in, I don't know, it'll play a role in fetching the BJP seats in Kerala.
Correct.
But it might have an impact on the fortunes of the left front.
Yeah.
So there are, elections are not determined, months in advance. There are many things that can happen. And I think we will have a better idea closer to the date.
I don't think anyone knows. I think anyone who is saying that this will happen or that will happen,
sir,
people don't know.
Can we go to the back now? We had this lady from the front and at the back. Yes, sir. Yeah, it's you. Yes, sir.
That was a very sharp, very interesting and well done dialogue we've had.
Yeah.
Yet one word, word I have not heard, or two words. One is democracy, and the other one is nepotism. I think this battle is going to be between democracy and nepotism. If I might say, the nepotism aspect would also have an impact both in UP as well as in Tamil Nadu and elsewhere. And it will fit into both the federal as well as the state level equation. I think it's a very major...
How do you mean?
The debate is going to be between do you want democracy versus do you want nepotism?
And what would be nepotism in UP for you?
Oh, definitely the SP party has a nepotism history there.
He's talking about family dynasty.
Yeah, the family aspect of...
Yadav Parivar.
Yeah, well, whoever said, nepotism is the death knell of democracy. That's going to be the debate. Yeah. Do you want democracy versus do you want nepotism or family business?
Anyone from the panel would like to comment on this?
I mean, we believe in charisma of families. I'm not defending it. But that's one of the things Modi has going for him. It's one of the things that creates his persona, is that he is an outsider to Delhi. He is not from the higher caste, as BJP's first Prime Minister was. He is an OBC, and he is an outsider and he comes in, and that is part of the image of Modi. I agree with you, but at the same time, it is political dynasties in India, especially the regional dynasties, also have a great deal of resilience and the capacity to fight back. Nepotism is never a good principle, but in the real world, it works also.
A very brief point, we're talking about democracy. There are, I think, two major issues are going to play out, which has been a very continuing theme right in the last 4.5 years. One is democracy, and the other is the stream of authoritarianism, which is being kind of imposed on this country. We have had in India past experiences with authoritarianism. History tells us that during a phase when authoritarianism is very dominant, people do not express their opinions. It is only post facto that we're able to say, oh, there was so much anger. So I really do not know. I think that people are holding the cards very close to the chest. Nobody is actually is actually saying at this stage whether they are very comfortable with the kind of claustrophobia which this regime has imposed on India over the last 4.5 years. Maybe many people are, one of the panelists said, maybe many here also would go back and actually press the button for the BJP. But it's also possible that the majority of Indians are not comfortable with this throttle, which is trying to, choke the entire nation. Yeah. There is definitely an issue and greater support for free speech and freedom of opinion.
To the organizers, do you think we have only 1 minute?
One last question.
There is no more panels sort of after this. Do you think we can get 5 more minutes? So instead of one...
Well, with the audience...
We are not coming in the way of any other panel.
No, actually, we have another event that's starting over there that's requested us because they're going to be loud.
So, all right, there's one last question.
We'll give you 3 minutes.
3 minutes. So,
good negotiation.
Let's go here. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. And we will go we'll take one from this side. Yes.
So, I was wondering, somebody like Prashant Kishore, who has been juggling from BJP to Congress and now back to JDU, what do people like him, what would their role be in the national elections? Because things like sabbatical for Namo, which are going around for the youngsters, are being thrown around on WhatsApp and emails, like, send your emails as sabbatical for Namo. So what's going to be the role for all those things?
So I just happened to meet Prashant just before he went to Patna. So he's a very interesting character because he was Modi's one of his election managers. And he had a role. He's definitely had a role. Now that he's joined Nitish Kumar's JDU, he had a role in making sure that this alliance, the division was done in a way that it would it would work to an extent. So he's got a good deal out for Nitish Kumar. During the Bihar elections, when one actually saw him operating, he was managing the entire election schedule, both of Lalu Prasad Yadav and of Nitish Kumar. So Prashant has his uses. He understands power. He understands he has a lot of scorn for the way the Congress functions. He's also working for Jagan Reddy. He sent him on this Rath Yatra. He told me that he is, and he was right. He turned out to be right. He informed me that Jagan Reddy is the Congress has made mistakes in not going with Jagan, but in going with TDP. So he's a very shrewd character, and he has already had a role in the outcome of the JDU-BJP alliance, which was announced yesterday.
One last question. Yes, sir. The question is, one last question for you. You have a mic? Yeah. Here's the mic.
Will money might outweigh the voter sentiments this election? Because considering that BJP has the largest sources of funds, so will money might outweigh the voter sentiments, especially in states of Maharashtra where, everybody's paid, like maids and all, they've been paid 150 rupees to vote for one particular candidate. So how do you, Saba or maybe Mukul, if you can answer on how would that
would money outweigh?
Yeah, I don't think it'll outweigh it. I think money plays a much greater role in by-elections, and it's huge because you can focus that. I think it plays a role, but it's not going to be, it's not going to be determined by money.